community bound together by shared principles that are drawn from world religions, humanist teachings, nature and science, philosophy and personal practices. We are a religion of love and inclusion. The mission of Summit is to commit ourselves to building a more passionate, just, and sustainable world. If you are new, there we go. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism or to Summit and would like to know more about us, we invite you to go to our website at summituuf.org, click on the visitors button, and fill out our online connection card. Someone will follow up with you. Mary Carter Vale has an announcement.
Good morning.
Guard has an announcement, and Dan Bartholomew also has an announcement today.
So a few weeks ago, we had a meeting of the Lifespan Faith Engagement folks. Lifespan Faith Engagement. Lifespan Faith Formation or Lifespan Faith is a very fancy name for what I do. We help folks all work together to develop their spiritual growth. And when I do lifespans, when I talk to everybody in Time for All Ages, right? Well, one of the things we decided we wanted to do was wanted to have more opportunities for us to get together and to play. And so next Saturday, in here at 5 o'clock, we're going to watch a movie that has been nominated for an Academy Award and was written and produced by somebody who was raised as a UU. So raised as a UU, the director. So, and it is, drum roll please, the Barbie movie. It's the Barbie movie. And I hope you will all come and wear pink. It is PG-13. So for anybody with children who are 13 or under, you need to PG them. Okay. Next Saturday at 5 o'clock. And we're going to have pizza and some popcorn, and you're welcome to bring other snacks to share. So it's just a community gathering. So hopefully you'll join us. Thank you.
All right. Hi. I just wanted to, on behalf of the Social Justice in Action Committee, thank everybody that has been bringing food items to put in the gray barrel on Sunday mornings. We've collected some 30 bags of food that have been donated to Santee Food Bank and Grossmont Community College. We're now transitioning to kind of move away from gathering the wide variety of things to try and focus on hygiene items and bathroom items to take to Gizmo's Kitchen, which is the food pantry at Grossmont Community College. There are many homeless students who live in their cars, actually faculty who use the food pantry as well. So you're welcome to continue to bring food if you would like, but we're asking for, and they're asking for things like soap containers, shampoo, conditioner, deodorant, feminine hygiene products, laundry detergent pods, toothbrushes, caps for toothbrushes, and little bags that will hold all these things. So the gray barrel will remain in the greeting room, and we invite people to bring travel size things mostly, so that, because these are people that don't have a bathroom they can leave things in, so things that they can carry in and out. And for sure, if you're going on a vacation, collect those little soaps and shampoos and bring them in and share them with Gizmo's Kitchen. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Just for those who are new or haven't been attending, a reminder, this is the formal kickoff Shelter Sunday for the Interfaith Shelter Network. So we're real excited about that. But for those who weren't aware, that's happening here at the facility from March 9th to 23rd, and we will be hosting several unhoused guests, individuals here at the facility for a period of 2 weeks. So while this is our formal offering today, we did do a soft opening last week of our online sign-up volunteer tool. We'll continue to kind of push the messaging on that so you all have a maximum chance to be engaged. I just wanted to say that with our initial push of the online sign-up, we've already filled over 35% of the 196 kind of slots that we need, ideally, to support the shelter operation from March 9th to 23rd. So thank you all very much for that. You will continue to find flyers out in the greeting area and in the salon after the service. One has a handy QR code as well as the link to the online sign up for you to access if you prefer to do it by technology means. If you don't like that, someone will be here pretty much every Sunday between now and the 9th in the back of the salon for you to sign up with in person. In terms of the volunteer roles, we're seeing people volunteer across a complexion of roles. One role that we're not really making movement on filling is called the evening logistics person. And I guess if I had to describe that in some kind of overarching way, that's a person who's kind of a floater, maybe provides trolley runs, assists the folks who are working in the salon, preparing meals, and those kinds of things. But otherwise, we've seen a good response, even in the overnight positions from several individuals. So we appreciate that quite a bit. Join us in the salon for nachos after the service, where we will also be there, as I said, to sign you up in person. But Aaron and team have done a fantastic job of setting up a really good spread in there that has chips, nacho sauce, beans, all that kind of stuff. So get over there and get yourself some lunch after the question and answer period for the service. And the last thing I want to say, I won't take up too much more time, is I was able to contact the caseworker from the county who's, these folks kind of are vetting folks to come into the Interfaith Shelter Network. I think the vetting is simply things like health, hygiene, and safety, and showing some forward progress toward gaining long-term housing. So she told me that in the East County rotation right now, there are a family of 5. So they're over at St. Andrews right now. It's a mother, her adult daughter, her adult nephew, and 2 children, ages 6 and 9, I think. So whether they stay through the whole cycle and make it to Summit, I don't know. She was also interviewing a senior. So, I understand, and I've not actually worked with a shelter in the past, but some people may find housing in the period between now and then, or they may still be with us when they get here, and new people will come into the fold as we move through the cycle as well. So what the final complexion will look like, I'm not sure, but we just wanted to give everybody some information so you have a sense about kind of who our guests are going to be in that sense, and maybe that'll help you in making a decision as to whether or not you want to volunteer. So thanks so much. We'll see you in the salon after the service. And I'll take my hat.
I'm sorry, Sarah. Can you do that? It just came through. Oh, it just came through. Hi, good morning. This is an announcement from Casey that she would like us to remember that her grief group will be next week. That's Sunday, the 11th, 7 and 4 is 11, in the sanctuary at noon. That's a grief group in the sanctuary at noon after service next week. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody, for your announcements. And Dan, I can cross off some of my speech because we did, and that's fine. That's fine. You did a good job. He's been terrific. We acknowledge that our fellowship resides on unceded Kumeyaay land, and that for more than 10,000 years this land has been and continues to be home to the Kumeyaay people. We recognize the violent history of colonization in California and honor the legacy of the continuing presence of the Kumeyaay Nation. Shelter leader Al Morick will be lighting the chalice in the memory of his late wife, Fern, a longtime supporter and helper in the shelter. Our chalice lighting words are "A Spark of Hope" by Melanie Davis. If ever there was a time for a candle in the darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice. Did it light?
Yeah, there's a small candle, so.
I think Fern wants extra time to say hello.
She always did things her way anyway, you know. Not cool, but swamp every day. Most.
There's no wick.
Oh,
Always use the one, this candle is off.
Come on, Fern.
You hear yourself for a change.
She's okay. High five.
high five. Al,
Leave me hanging. Took two of us.
And then somebody else helped, three of us, three of us, okay.
please rise in mind, body, and spirit, and join us for our UU hymn and aspiration. Thank you, Dawn. Please join me in the reading on page 459 in the blue hymnal. Or it may, oh, it's on the screen. Oh, good. This is the mission of our faith, to teach the fragile art of hospitality, to revere both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to witness to all that we must hold the whole world in our hands. Barbara, the pianist, would like to play all the hymns. I'm sorry. We have two, one's Barbara, one's Karen. Karen, each of the hymns, we have 3 hymns that we're going to be singing today. Karen would like to play the melody through before each one, before we start singing, because the hymns are kind of unfamiliar.
I would say with this first one, there's just mainly, it's not so hard, but there's a leap of a seventh. And if you happen to, does anybody know this hymn? Anybody? We are not our own. And so I'm just going to play the tune, and so you can kind of hear how it fits. And if you read music, use the hymnal and sing very loudly.
Aaron's going to talk to us now about joys and concerns.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. I'm Erin, co-chair of the Social Justice and Action Committee, along with Al Mork. Joys and concerns. They can be emailed or texted to Pastor Casey or the service associate when she is away from Summit throughout the week, or it can be handwritten on a piece of paper and then dropped off. All are welcome to light a candle as so moved. And there is one candle up there. So we know there are more joys and concerns in this room that have been shared, that have not been shared aloud, whether spoken or unspoken. We hold them and you in our hearts. Please take a minute here before we move on. And after this, Miss Mary will come up. Thank you.
And now it's time for all ages with our Director of Religious Exploration, Mary Carter Vale, who is going to tell us about Justice Cookies.
I have a prop today, a rather big prop. So it's a new month, February, so we have a new theme. And our theme for this month is justice and equity, which is very appropriate with today, with us beginning our kickoff to our shelter, interfaith shelter program, where we support our unhoused neighbors. So I wanted to tell you a story about justice cookies. I made some cookies. Now, so there's justice. I will have cookies at the nacho bar. I made more, not just these 10. Just want to let you all know. But the kids, of course, are going to get some first. So for this story, I mean, I was trying to figure out how do we work it. And rather than talking about our unhoused neighbors, I'm going to talk about people being hungry. So these plates for hungry, okay? And we know we collect money for the food bank. And even some of our members of the community sometimes need a little help with food. That's a very normal, natural thing. So has anything unfair ever happened to anybody here? Anything unfair? Yeah, everybody can say, it was unfair. I have a younger sister, and the two of us were 2 years apart, and my mother must have got so sick of hearing us going, it's unfair, because we did it all the time, which is very typical for siblings. It's just part of that whole, how we learn to live together. So is fair the same as equal? No, I don't think so. They're kind of different, aren't they? But let's play with this idea. So let us see. We're gonna use our little table with our bunnies, and we're gonna see if we're gonna play with this idea of fair and equal. So I brought 10 cookies. These are snickerdoodles. It's a recipe my grandmother used to make, and my great grandmother used to make. So I have 10 snickerdoodles. So I'm going to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, put them on this plate, and 5, put them on this plate. Does that look fair? Or looks equal, doesn't it? Equal. It's like this 10 divided by 2 is what? 5. You just got 5, right? But it might be fair, but it might not. How do we know? We could, yeah, the size of the cookies. What if we asked our bunnies if it was fair or not? So like this bunny, he had a lovely breakfast. He found all the clover, he found all of the nummy stinging nettles, and he ate them up this morning. He had a lovely breakfast. This bunny didn't get any. He's an urban bunny. There wasn't as much growing in his neighborhood. So now is 5 cookies for each fair? He might be more hungry. So then maybe we need to do an extra cookie over here, because there was no clover or nettle in his neighborhood or their neighborhood. So whose breakfast now is bigger? This guy's got the bigger breakfast, right? So because he has a bigger breakfast, maybe we need to make it equal over here. But wait, he had more. I'm confused. I don't know how to help people. So how do we know how to help folks? We need to ask them. Difference of needs. Right. Yeah. Has anybody ever experienced their needs being different from somebody else? Yeah. I get hangry. Does anybody know what that means? When I don't eat enough, I get cranky. And sometimes I don't realize I haven't eaten. So I had to learn that was a need that I had. So I was this bunny and had no clover for breakfast. I'd be pretty cranky right now. I would need that extra cookie. So the idea is looking at whether something is fair or equal or just. I mean, how do we look at those things? There's always a hidden part of the story, right? Just like for our unhoused neighbors, or for yourself if you might be experiencing that, or any kind of hard thing you're going through. People, when they walk up to you and they look at you, they go, Mary, I don't know your story, but you look this way. So I'm going to make some assumptions, right? So fairness and justice call us to question our assumptions, to ask more questions. So when you start to see yourself thinking you know the story, invite somebody into a bigger story and learn more about them and their story, because you don't know if you're going to experience that next, right? You could be the bunny that got no clover. And it's just that's really the best way we can help each other, is by talking to them. So I hope that all of you we'll engage with our shelter guests when they're here. And remember, they're our guests. We get to provide for them and to share our bounty. So, and for them to share theirs and their wisdom and their knowledge and whatever they bring. So thank you. That's my story for today. Bunnies and cookies, and I promise cookies for all you afterwards. So we are going to, let's do our UU affirmation followed by our Do Re Mi song. Ready? We are Unitarian, Universalists. People have open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. Wonderful. So now I invite any young person or adults who want to come back to RE. We're going to play Unfair Candyland and Unfair Monopoly. One each person is worth.
Please rise as we sing of hope and joy on page 1060 in the teal hymnal.
It's also an unfamiliar hymn, so I'll play it once through if you like to hum along.
This is Interfaith Shelter Sunday, and our reflection is titled Service is Our Prayer. We have three speakers today, and that's Don Janius Smith, myself, and Margot Mariana. And we are going to be telling you about our experiences with the Interfaith Shelter. Afterwards, Aaron, who is one of the leaders for both the Social Justice in Action Committee and the Interfaith Shelter, will offer concluding remarks.
when Summit began hosting the Interfaith Shelter, my wife, Barbara, immediately stepped in and began coming early in the morning to help get the breakfast organized. I was reluctant because I had a kind of a stereotype of the homeless people, and I wasn't clear that I wanted to deal with them. But Barbara, with her, began encouraging me because she began finding that there were interesting people that were in the thing. And she also was pointing out that the Crisis House does a screening of the people. And so they aren't the dregs of the homeless people, but are people who have a chance at some kind of a future. So with that in mind, I began coming and helping out first thing in the morning. We're early risers. We end up getting up before 5 o'clock in the morning usually. So it wasn't hard to get here by 6. And so that became our position around here. When Barbara stopped driving, I became more involved because she depended on me to get to church, get to Summit here. And so I got here early and began enjoying talking with the people that came over for breakfast. At one point, I got to the point where I actually went and spent a night at one of the other churches when they were short of staff, and they have reciprocated and had people come when we've been short on certain positions. Couple of interesting backgrounds. One of the guests one time had a master's degree in counseling, just like my wife. And here she was homeless, but she was well educated and but she had prospects of coming around. Another guest had been in the service and had learned a good deal of computer skills. He was young and physically fit, so we hired him and he painted the trim on our house. And Norm Dessel knew of his computer background, and he hired him to help him get his computer all straightened out and back under control. So we're see that these people have usable backgrounds in some of these cases. I ended up running into one of these guests the last year before the pandemic down at Mission Beach. She had found a job as a receptionist at a doctor's office, and happened that doctor's office was right across the way from the restaurant where my hiking group has breakfast before we go on our hikes. And lo and behold, here she was, and she was so happy to see me, and was so thankful, and spoke about how she really appreciated what someone had done for her. She had had a car that had a bad tire, and somebody managed to arrange to get a replacement tire for her bad tire. So I really feel that it's a worthwhile cause, and it's worth. I gained from the experience of having worked and meeting these people, and I would recommend to any of you who, if you haven't done it before, it's well worth the effort to try and spend some time working on this.
Thank you, Dawn. What Dawn didn't mention, is that he and his wife, Barbara, have been showing up at 6 a.m. 5 days a week during both weeks of the shelter for years. And they not only provide them with breakfast, but they provide them with food so they can make sack lunches. Also, just to add to Dawn's speech about certain people, the young man he was talking about, I believe his name was John, right? Yeah. Who did some painting for him and was very good with computers, also did a lot of work for me. And I was living alone at the time, and he did a lot of handyman type work for me. And we were very fond of John. We really didn't want to see him go. Okay. Oh, speech. Soon after I became a UU and a member of Summit in 2010, I became friends with the wonderful Barbara Brooks, who ran the Interfaith shelter at Summit. She asked me to be her assistant, and Barbara and I worked on the shelter for years. I remember fondly signing up volunteers, shopping for food and supplies at Costco, assisting with early breakfasts and sack lunches for the guests, and helping to serve and clean up after dinners. I enjoyed visiting with the guests at dinner time and listening to their stories. It was then I realized that these people are just like you and me, who are down on their luck. After Barbara stepped down, Al Mort became the shelter leader. Al's dedication to the shelter project over many years is unshakable. Since then, I've been working with Al on the shelter. My focus has been primarily on the planning for purchasing of food and supplies for the shelter. Dan already talked to you about the structure of the Interfaith Shelter Program, where the guests stay at, it's a group of churches in a certain area, and the guests stay at each church for 2 weeks. In addition to food and shelter, the guests are provided with medical services, counseling, access to work training programs, and affordable housing. And a couple people have already talked to you about that the guests are screened. And one of the things they're screened for, as has already been mentioned to you, is their ability to benefit most from this program. And the majority of them have been able to find affordable housing and pathways to employment while in the shelter. Running an interfaith shelter is very complex with many moving parts. Volunteers are crucial in making Summit Shelter a success. And being of service to the unhoused is very rewarding, because you are improving these people's lives, and they are very grateful. And helping them is also a service to the community. Dan's already talked to you about the work that he's done signing up volunteers, but it bears repeating. There are many areas that need help, and volunteers can choose where they want to participate. Signing up to be a volunteer is easy. An email was recently sent out asking for volunteers with a link to do so online. The link to the volunteer site will also be in the e-news every week. And as Dan said, in addition, today and every Sunday after the service, there will be in-person signups at a table in the salon where our shelter leaders will assist you. All volunteers are welcome to come to dinner. The food is always good, and there's plenty of it. Please consider volunteering. We need you. I would also like to add that the typical unhoused person in the San Diego area has changed over time. When I began helping out with the shelter, most of the guests were living on the streets or coming from other shelters. Now many unhoused people are living in their cars, including entire families, a large number of students, and even people who are employed. They all have one thing in common: they can't find affordable housing. California has the largest number of unhoused people per capita by far than any other state. Some people believe this is because unhoused people are coming from other states for our better weather, our current weather accepted. But this is not the case. Most unhoused people in California are Californians who can't afford the high cost of housing. There are a number of local and state initiatives promoting affordable housing. If you see these on a ballot, please vote for them. Thanks for listening.
And good morning. I would echo everything that's been said, and I'd like to begin with, when I think about homeless, I had to catch myself initially. What was an immediate assumption? Oh, are they druggies? Are they, something else wrong with them? And no. And it's been such a valuable experience to be with the people coming here, as we've been sharing. One of the things I would also add to get you more in that spirit of home is where the heart is. Just imagine and visualize actual happenings in your own life where there was a lot of change going on, whether it was through loss of somebody, you had to move, just a sense of transformation process you're going through. Who am I right now? And feeling very displaced and asking yourself, where do I belong? Even if you had a home over your head, who am I? Where do I belong? And especially in these times where we have to ask those reflective questions. What am I doing with my life? Where am I? What's going on? I know in my own personal experience, I've always been very fortunate, except for one time when I went bankrupt and I got thrown out of my facility, literally. That was years ago, but I had friends that helped me. And as a child, I was moved around a lot, and very many wonderful experiences with that. My dad was in the State Department, and we literally moved every 2.5, 3 years. So I was uprooted and had to adjust to a whole different culture. And in retrospect, it's been so valuable because I've gotten such a wonderful exposure to diversity of human experience, human dwellings, human happenings. So it's really expanded me tremendously. But nonetheless, I have a pattern in my life also where every 9 years, everything falls apart on one level or another. And the bounty of that has been that it's opened doors. It's created what I call a fertile void that lots of new comes in. Now, these people that we're privileged to help, I have learned so much from them. It's gotten rid of my assumptions that they're, they're worthless or whatever. I didn't have that completely, but just I have learned so much from them. They are have so much faith and so much hope and endurance and a kind of perseverance and such a diversity of experiences. They're very vibrant sources of dwelling and being within themselves. And it's wonderful to sit and have food with them and just visit. And, a favorite saying of mine is, bless your obstacles, they are your teachers. And these people, these guests are teachers. Look what I'm doing. We had, and they're all examples. We had a woman last year who had a job, and yet she couldn't afford housing. She'd been thrown out of her dwelling and she couldn't afford the housing. And so many people are in that position. I don't know how many of you noticed that there seem to be more people on the streets literally, and the police are chasing them off, but the next day they're back. I never thought I'd see that in my life, that would be happening. But the people that come here may have been experienced living out of their cars, but they have that endurance, they have that faith, they have that knowing, they have that perseverance. And just, it's a pleasure to sit with them. And the food here, the food that shows up here is fantastic. I feel like besides enjoying the company, I'm out to a restaurant for dinner. So that's another one. But I'd like to leave you with one of my favorite poems about feeling belonging, feeling have faith in under all times. And it's a poem called Lost by David Wagner. This is kind of a roadmap to how to be in times of uncertainty and have your faith. Stand still, stand still. Wherever you are is called here, and you must ask permission to know it and be known. Listen, the forest breathes. I have made the space around you. If you leave it, you may come back again saying here. No two trees are the same to raven. No two branches are the same to wren. If what a tree or a bush does is lost on you, then you are surely lost. Stand still. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. Let it find you. Thank you.
Thank you to our three speakers. Thank you for stepping up and volunteering your stories. I know it took a lot of time. I took a little bit of notes. Dawn, thank you for sharing. I loved how you shared about reluctance, because sometimes we're really reluctant to step up or help out in places that we're maybe fearful about. So thank you for your honesty. Nancy, thank you for reminding us of the importance of the nuts and bolts of the shelter and how much goes into it. Thank you for telling us that it's mostly Californians that are unhoused. It's a myth that all these people are being bussed in from all these other states to take our health care. That simply is not true. Margot, thank you for sharing about belongingness, and thank you for sharing your own personal experiences. I'm going to talk for a little bit since I'm at the pulpit. Before I share my speech, for those of you that are working on the Interfaith shelter right now, could you guys stand up and show yourselves? Wow. Thank you. That's a lot of people. Volunteers, everybody. Thank you. You may be seated. So as you can tell, it takes a village to do this, and we still need some villagers to step up. And no, I'm not asking you to donate your firstborn child or anything. This might be a meal or helping be a co-partner overnight. Again, we're going to have signups after the service in the nacho bar. But I wanted to share a few more things, if I may. A quote on interconnectedness and community by Chief Seattle. He lived from 1786 to 1866, what is now called Washington State. Humankind has not woven the web of life. We are but one thread within it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. All things are bound together. We are all interconnected. Why did I choose this? Well, the people, our guests, are part of our web. We are all interconnected. People who are unhoused are part of our web here at Summit in East County. And I'd like to give some examples. You might be a teacher here in San Diego. Maybe there's a student in your class that you don't know that sleeps in their car at night with their family, but they're too embarrassed to tell you. Maybe that car you see sometimes parked on the street, encroaching upon 72 hours or they better move, is a person that is unhoused. They're your greeter at the grocery store, but you don't know. Maybe the cashier at your favorite coffee place is unhoused, but they aren't going to tell you. They hope you give an extra tip. Another example, I currently work with the county with people who are homeless. I was working with a patient that just got out of jail. I've learned that most people, when they get out of jail, are released at midnight. I had a patient who's released on a Sunday night at midnight. There are no services at midnight hardly to see a social worker or to get a voucher for housing. Also, these people usually might have medications they're on for schizophrenia or bipolar. You can't get meds at midnight and figure that all out yourself. Maybe they are on probation because they got caught shoplifting while psychotic, so they have to register in 72 hours or they can get rearrested. That's what it looks like out there. So many of us may be a paycheck away from not being able to afford housing. Another example, maybe you are 25 years old and you just got out of the ER and you thought you had good insurance, but somebody saw you there that you didn't know that wasn't part of your insurance plan. So you get a bill for $2,000 for this non-contracted specialist. Who's heard of that? Raise your hand. That's a lot of people. Put your hand down. When you're 20 years old, you don't know to ask that doctor, hey, are you in my covered benefits plan so I don't have to pay $3,000? Maybe someone hits your car and they were uninsured and you must pay the cost of your car. Do you pay for the car or do you pay your rent? Maybe you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, or 100s, and you don't make 3 times the monthly rent to qualify for that 400 square foot crappy apartment in who knows where. So you sleep in your car. Maybe you're from another country escaping the cartel and genocide, but people in the US label you as an illegal, and you're going to take our jobs, and we're not going to rent to you. Maybe you go to Grossmont College and you're escaping domestic violence from your partner, and you don't want to live in the women's shelter because people steal your stuff at night. So it's easier to sleep in your car where no one will steal your belongings. Maybe you're predisposed to schizophrenia and it presents in yourself. You just didn't get the lucky cards. Last but not least, this is a true story. Maybe you're a Unitarian here in California. By the way, this is one of my friends. You and your partner are college educated and have your master's, but you can barely afford your rent in California. You're both adjunct professors, your IQs are through the charts, and you barely qualify for a $1,900 barely functioning apartment in San Diego. You have to have several GoFundMes on social media to pay for your gas or cell phone, and you promise to pay everybody back. You teach at 3 different junior colleges in your county, but you can't get health insurance because you don't work full time. You're not lazy, you have a job, but the community thinks that you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. Your loans have compounded. You're contemplating bankruptcy, but that won't get you out of your student loans. People yell at you, you chose that degree, pay up, I'm not paying for you. So what is my point here? We are all interconnected. We hope that you step up and continue to help our neighbors in our community. Sign up to bring a dish, sign up to be an overnighter. Service is our prayer, and right now we need your helping hands to help all those that need an extra boost. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. All those specifics were great, just great. It's time for our offering now, and I wanted to mention that 85% of our donations today will go to the Interfaith Shelter. We are a fellowship supported entirely by the voluntary generosity of our members and friends, and we greatly appreciate our faithful pledgers who continue to keep up their monthly contributions. It is now easier than ever to contribute to our virtual plate today. The link can be found in the chat box and will take you directly to the donation location. And now we will gratefully accept your generous donations during the musical interlude.
I'm going to play the Largo from our piano arrangement of the Largo from Dvorak's New World Symphony, which has been made into a hymn or a spiritual called Going Home.
Please rise and join us in singing our closing hymn, The Human Touch Can Light the Flame. Page 307 in the blue hymnal. Day. After our closing circle song, we will have about a 5-minute break. Then please be seated if you wish to stay for our community gathering. We encourage people on Zoom to participate in our community gathering. Just raise your hand if you would like to speak. Dan Bartholomew is going to walk the mic around during our community gathering today. He's one of our interfaith leaders, so he can probably answer a lot of the questions himself. After our community gathering, you are all invited to go to the salon for refreshments and fellowship. And Dan is going to extinguish the chalice for us. Our closing words are by Elizabeth Sell Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now for our closing circle song.
So remember, we'll have a community gathering here in 5 minutes. If you're not staying, we have our nacho bar in the cafe. 5 minutes.
Hi, I'm Pam Williams. And when you talk, Dan, about the 100 and something jobs, that shouldn't scare people away. Why they are 100 and something jobs is they made these jobs that anybody can do. Anyone, there is a job there for you. And it's not giving your life away. It's not committing to 2 weeks of the shelter. I mean, maybe if you want to, you could, but they divided all these jobs because they're small jobs that can be done by anybody, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a nice segue. There, we've got the roles and responsibilities up here, and there's something small and large and in between for anybody that wants to lend a helping hand. And the reason there's 194 jobs is because it's a 2-week shelter, and we use 10 to 15 people per day across 2 weeks. Like many people, Phil, as you learned earlier about Don and Barbara, they do the breakfast crew every morning for 10 days during the shelter period. So that, technically speaking, is 20 jobs, right? So that's how we come up with those numbers. But what great speakers today. Do we have anyone else have any thoughts or questions or comments that you wanted to get out? Yeah, Barbara.
Yeah, questions about what's needed the most, because now that we have this in front of us, it's sort of helpful. And things like for me, like a lot of times I teach piano pretty late. I can't do a lot of the days. But like the setup and takedown, what it says must be able to lift heavy objects. How heavy are you talking?
Would you like to talk?
I do speak. We were talking to Mark, and he said we're not moving a piano or anything like that, but some of the shelving and some of the, we're going to be boxing things up and moving boxes out. So he was saying he would like some heavy lifters, but we could also use people who can box things and carry boxes. So yeah, no, they're not moving like apartment, people out of an apartment furniture or anything like that. So
yeah, I'd say if you have any physical ailments where you shouldn't be lifting, it's probably not the job for you. But otherwise, if you're an otherwise kind of healthy individual, that's definitely something to consider. Yes, Serafina.
Would you clarify what you mean by, say, entree, parentheses 3? 3 entrees for 3 people? What?
yes, and this is going to be kind of fluid because it really depends on how many people we're going to have, and we don't know that until the time comes. But what Al has suggested is 3 different entrees, 1 being vegetarian, 2 being regular entrees to feed, I think we were saying between about 8 people each. And so that is so that it could include the people who are spending the night here and volunteers to eat also. But I know in the past we've had a lot of leftovers too, and we don't want any food waste. So so at this point, we're asking for 3 different entrees that are feed 8 people each, and 1 being a vegetarian entree. So yes, I'm sorry. Yes. So each person, we would want 3 different people to bring and 1 entree that would feed 8 people. They can if they want. So yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, that wasn't very clear. Al, did you have something?
I have a couple of things that wasn't mentioned today, and for any new folks at the unhoused guests that we have for 2 weeks or whatever are clean and sober. They're vetted as far as that, and the requirements of the Interfaith Shelter Network, which we work through, a member of. They're either looking for work, training for a job, or working in a low-paying job that can't afford to pay rent. And and we've had some great times over the years where some of the guests we've had that have had a low-paying job, and hey, by the end of the shelter at Summit, they had a pay raise or a promotion like that, and so that really makes you feel good that we've got, that we were able to help them in ways to get this. And another thing is I want to mention that the music today was put together, talk about by Liz McHugh. So I think she did a great job. So,
tunes were, I didn't realize that the music itself was difficult to sing, but I chose it because of the words. So I'm just hope that people paid attention to the words.
Also, I want to thank Dan and Melody for stepping in this year, and when needed, as I was starting to back down, and another couple was going to take over, and that had some experience, and they got transferred out of town to their jobs, and so they were available, and these two people stepped right up, and they've been learning, good students, so, right? Okay, so definitely.
Well, don't let Al fool you. He pretty much single-handedly staffed the dinner hour through other organizations that he worked with on the 14th and the 15th, I think. So Santee United Methodist and the Baha'i Church are going to supply most of the meal needs for those nights, and possibly, we're not sure yet, some overnight assignments as well. So that was awesome. Thanks, Al.
Yes, Al, thanks for that. And thank you, Dan and Melody and everybody else behind the scenes. Another thing to consider, since we care about the environment and we don't want 5 drives to Summit each night for meals. I am a lousy cook, so I don't cook anything. So 1 or 2 nights I bought pizzas from down there and had them delivered or had somebody pick them up for them. So if you're not of the cooking spirit, you can do that. If you're at home on Zoom, you could also donate money to have food delivered too, if you want to help out and maybe you're not physically able to make it or have transportation. That is an option you can do. Say, hey, Thursday night, I want to give money for the entree. So please consider that too, if you're at home or in another state and want to help out. Oh, I'm never done talking. So, and also if you know any like Boy Scout, Girl Scout, Brownies troops that would like to help that are local, we have those flyers to pass out and give to them.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I think, I would plead to the organization or to the congregation here, we have groups internal to our family, whether it's covenant groups or committees. This is a great opportunity for a covenant group to come together on a night and meet here at the facility and, do something positive for the guests as well, as an example. So sometimes many hands better than no hands, for sure. Some of these positions that you see up here, I'll just touch on a few. That the evening logistics one I mentioned, I don't think we've had anyone volunteer yet to do any of the evenings for that position. We're doing pretty good on setup and takedown. We've almost got all of those positions filled. We've done surprisingly well on overnighters. We had one fella volunteer to do like 7 overnighters for us. He was also here last year. He is from the La Mesa Methodist Church, I think. So we've got a big tote board in the salon. It's a visual board where you can see which positions are completely full and where the holes are. But there's still an opportunity for you to do any one of these functions. It's just when you do it that's kind of the question mark. So go take a look at that if you get a chance. Do we have anyone on the Zoom that had a question? Nope. Okay. Any more questions from the crowd? Oh, I'm sorry, Nancy. Yeah. Yeah, you do.
I just wanted to mention that we have 4, probably more than 4, but these 4 people, especially who've joined the shelter committee this year, I can't emphasize enough their tremendous contribution. They have modernized our shelter setup, and Chris, and what is your last name, Chris? Rask? Chris Rask is responsible for putting so much of this stuff online. Dan and Melody Bartholomew are making tremendous contributions, and they've just jumped right in with both feet, and it's just they have improved our shelter so much. I can't emphasize that enough. And Aaron Doherty is also one of the shelter leaders, and these people have just added so much to the shelter. Let's give them a hand. Okay, I guess.
Oh, there we go. If there's no more questions, we've got nachos with lots of fixins, thanks to Aaron and team. So we'll see you over there. Thanks, everybody.